Welcome back to our generic crafting tutorial series. In this episode, we are going to be going over the bank NPC and making that functionality here. So we already have our storage chest, and our bank NPC is going to be pretty close to the same as our storage chest. I'm going to make this in objects, NPC. Put it wherever you want. But for me, my NPC is actually just going to be an actor. It's not going to be a pawn or a character or anything like that. And this is going to be BP Banker. I'm going to replace this default scene root with a skeletal mesh because I'm going to use Manny. You can use whatever you want here, but I'm going to use Manny. And we're going to use ABP Manny, that way he's properly idling, he's not stiff as a board. And that's all I'm going to do here. Well, actually I'm going to add a capsule collision. And we are going to make that capsule collision bigger, 88 by 44. We're going to move it up around Manny. That way we have some kind of way to interact with the banker. And I'm going to add an inventory component of our AC inventory type to this banker. That way it has some kind of way to hold its own inventory. I'm going to delete all this stuff. I'm going to go into my class settings, and we're going to make sure we add the BPI interactions that we've been using for this tutorial series. Compile, save that. Because most of what we're going to be doing is going to be related to this BPI. So the first thing I'm going to do is do my main interaction event, and that's going to be the same as pretty much all the other interaction events. We're going to get the instigator controller, and we're going to get the player controller, the custom player controller that we've been working with. And we're going to display the widget. You're just going to display the widget however you want your widget displayed here. Display transfer widget, pass in player from the instigator, and the other actor is going to be myself. And that's all we're going to do here. And the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to pull all of our interface triggers that we're actually going to need for this. So we're going to need adjust currency, add item, remove item, and we're going to need another one called increase items inventory size that we're going to make later on. But we also need the trigger for this save. So we're going to need all of these things. iTrigger save is going to trigger a custom event. Save banker data. So we can just go ahead and trigger that. Save banker data. And the rest of these are going to trigger events inside of the inventory component, just like they do in the player. One's going to be adjust currency. It's going to be add item and remove item. Add to inventory. Get that out of here. And remove from inventory. Just like they do on the player. And we'll make that last interaction event later on. So we need a way to save and load the banker data. And we're going to do that on event begin play. We're going to give it a tick like we normally do. And then we're going to run a custom event called load banker data. And this is going to be similar to how we save and load everything else. Call load banker data on event begin play. And we're going to make our load functionality first, and then we're going to make our save functionality. The same as we always do, we're going to get the valid save game ref. And we're going to make a function inside of our save game to set the bank inventory. So let's go into our game, go into our save. And we're going to add a new function called set bank inventory. And we're going to need some variables here to actually control this. The bank is basically going to have the same variables as the player, so I'm just going to duplicate some of these. bank inventory, bank size or bank inventory size, bank currency. And you could wrap all these up inside of a structure if you really wanted to. I'm not too worried about it. And we're going to give all these the banker category here. And set bank inventory is going to do pretty much exactly what you would think it's going to do. It is just going to take all of these and set them to whatever the input values are. We don't need to add to them or return from them or anything like that. We're just going to set them straight to whatever is being passed through to this save function. And we'll get that all from the banker. Okay. We're going to route those over. We're going to rename them bank size and bank currency. Give this the category banker. And we're going to make one more little function here to get bank inventory, which is going to do the exact opposite. Instead of setting all those, we are just going to return. And this could technically be pure if you want it to be. Our bank inventory, our bank size, and our bank currency. Now you could get all these out manually. I just kind of like having the little function here. Kind of makes it a little bit cleaner in our graph when we load. When we load, we're going to get bank inventory. And when we save, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to set bank inventory. Grab off of this, set bank inventory. We're going to get our AC inventory out here. And for loading the bank inventory, we are going to first run that load inventory event that we made before. This literally just sets the inventory value inside of the component to whatever inventory value we're bringing in. We're going to set the currency. And we're going to set the inventory size. Whoops. And we're going to set the inventory size. Make sure I get the right thing out here. And you could make a little custom event for these inside of the inventory component as well. I'm not too worried about it. I wish I would have done inventory size before currency, though. That's going to bother me. Flip it around. And boom. So that's all we're going to do here on load. We just need to get all the values out of the save game ref and load them up in the inventory component. Same thing with the bank save. We're just going to get all those values back out of inventory. So we're going to get inventory, get bank size, or get inventory size, and get currency. And pass all those right into our save. And currency. And then we need to make sure that we run our async or try save game. My bad. Not async. Let's try save game and select async. And I'm just going to comment around all this. And we don't need a unique identifier because our banker is going to be universal. Even if you have a banker in a different city, it's still going to be a banker. It's still going to use the same bank data. That's kind of the whole point of having a bank, right? So now that that's all set up, we need to set up our getter here. So on our interaction data, our interaction type is bank. That way we have the proper interaction type going through the player when we want to interact with this NPC. And get transfer details. Again, we just need to set all these up. So we're going to say banker. We're going to get the inventory again and get inventory. Get size. And get currency. And set our transfer type to bank. Okay. So pretty simple there. Just plug everything in like we did in the chest creation. That way this interaction message gets the proper data from the banker. So we don't need to cast to the banker. We don't need a direct reference to the banker. You can use this on any actor type you want, any class type you want, as long as it's of the base class actor, right? Which it's going to be. And that is all we need to do in here for now. Like I said, later on we are going to need another custom dispatch here for increasing the inventory size, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Inside of our transfer widget now, we're going to go ahead and start working out all of the logic to actually use our banker. So our banker needs to do a bunch of different stuff here, right? All of these buttons are going to be accessible. So the slider is going to be accessible. We're going to be able to withdraw currency, buy slots, deposit currency. All that stuff is going to be accessible here in the bank. Not like with the storage chest where all we could do was move items back and forth. So let's work with our sliders first. So we're going to take both of our sliders and we're going to say on value changed. This is a nifty little thing that happens with sliders. And we're going to say our button here, so button, we want our max bank withdraw. And I think for some reason I left max as just max over here. Yeah, max. We'll say player deposit. Max is pretty vague there. But, you know, whatever you want to call it, and that's what it's going to be. Basically just to set these amounts that we're transferring, the amount of currency we're transferring to max. So our on value changed player slider. The first thing we're going to do is make a new variable of an integer type. So I'll just duplicate that one. And this is going to be amount to deposit. And we're going to need another one called amount to withdraw. Then I'm going to give these a category currency. That way we don't get too carried away here. Did I even spell currency right there? Anyway, so our amount to deposit and our amount to withdraw. So when we adjust the value of our player currency, we're going to do deposit. And when we adjust the amount of the other, which is going to be bank, we're going to do amount to withdraw. Okay. So we need to get our value here, but we need to clamp it to the maximum amount that the player actually has in currency. So in our player data here, I take our player currency out, and that's going to be the max. Our value is going to be a tourniquet right in there, and that's all we're going to do here. We're going to do the exact same thing over here, except for instead of player currency, it is going to be the other currency, which is going to be the banker currency. So other currency. Max is going to do pretty much the same thing. We're going to take this amount to deposit. We're going to set player currency. And then we need to get our slider. So get our slider for our player currency. And we'll get other currency as well because we're going to be doing the exact same thing over there. We need to set the value. Okay, set the value, this nice little function that comes with sliders, to basically 100%. We're going to do amount to deposit because we're going to be setting the max value dynamically here in a minute. If you remember correctly, we have this function that's empty called set max slider values. And that's what we're going to be setting to the maximum amount of player currency that there is. Okay, that's all we're going to do here. We're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to take our amount to withdraw. Whoops. Take our amount to withdraw. Set that to the total amount of other currency available. And set value to the amount to withdraw. And we're going to collapse all that. That way it's nice and tucked away. And we're just going to call that adjust currency amounts. And I'm going to put it up here. And real quick, we're going to go ahead and do our set max slider values function, because this is still an empty function. And that's going to take our slider for our other currency and slider for our player currency. And it's just going to set max value. We're going to set that max value, like I just said, to the total amount of currency that each respective thing has. So the player is going to be player, the other is going to be other. Player currency and other currency. Just make sure you're passing currency and not capacity. I know I got hung up for a little while in my example game because I accidentally passed capacity instead of currency. I wasn't paying enough attention. So we're going to go through real quick and just make sure that our just currency amounts uses currency, 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 and not capacity. And good, that's all we need to do. So now when we open up these sliders, the max value is going to be the total amount of currency that's being passed through when we set up our widget. And when we hit the max button, it's going to go ahead and max out that slider. Just a bit of cosmetic stuff there to make it look good. So what are we actually doing with that, right? We need our button for withdraw currency and our button for deposit currency now. We have withdraw currency, deposit currency. And each of these is going to be more or less the same. It's going to be kind of a duplicate function. Withdraw currency. We're going to take our other actor out, and we're going to take our player out because we're going to need both of these. So withdraw currency is going to take the player. I adjust currency. And we're just going to pass the, where did I put that? Currency, currency, currency. Hello. We're going to put that amount to withdraw. Get amount to withdraw. And I adjust currency for the player to positively increase their currency by the amount that we are withdrawing here. So we're also going to need to reduce the currency of the other actor by that withdrawal amount's negative value. So we're subtracting it. And then, so I don't have to reload the entire thing when I save currency. It seemed a little ridiculous to me to try to reload this entire thing when we do currency. I'm just going to do a little bit of math here. So I'm going to take player currency. And I'm going to take player currency. And just like we do with the withdraw, I guess you could subtract if you wanted to, but I'm going to subtract it by, or I'm going to add the amount to withdraw to the player currency real quick. I'll just duplicate that. That way we're not having super strings. And we're going to take our other currency and just subtract it. Or you could multiply it by -1 and do it that way if you are really hardcore about it. Either way, just remove the currency from the other currency. That way those values are updated and we don't actually have to refresh the entire widget when we deposit or change currency. Where both of these are going to come into set max slider values. And if you want to save here, you can save here as well. I'm not going to save here. I'm going to go ahead and save on quit. So we're just going to send that I message to both of these when we quit. So we're going to take player and other actor. I save. I save. That way we guarantee that everything that we've done inside of this widget is properly being saved when we exit the widget. And again, if you want to save here, you could trigger both of them to I save here instead. I'm not too worried about it. Really just wherever you want to do it to be safe. Okay, I'm going to duplicate all this again, and it's going to be exactly the same except in reverse. So player is going to get switched with other actor, and other actor is going to get switched with player. And amount to withdraw is going to get switched to amount to deposit. So amount to deposit, other actor, player, other currency, amount to deposit, other currency, player currency, player currency, and set the max slider values. Let's make sure, double check real quick that we are subtracting from the player, adding to the other actor. We're taking our other currency, adding the amount, and subtracting the amount from our player currency. And it looks good. And that is all we need to do here. Just give it a comment and move it out of the way. If you want to collapse it, go ahead and collapse it. I didn't collapse this one, so it's not really too bad. Just kind of hanging out there. We have a few other things we need to do. Let's do the pickup overflow since we're not actually going to be handling that yet. We just kind of want the button to do something. So on our button pickup overflow, if you're dealing with overflow logic, remember that we've already set our overflow when we set up the widget, and we've already set the button to be hidden if there is nothing in overflow. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just go ahead and get overflow. Actually, we're going to get a valid save game ref. Make sure I do this properly here. And we're going to make a new function in here for overflow. That's going to be called clear overflow. And that is just going to take our overflow and clear it. Because we already have, we don't need the overflow input here. We already have, inside of our transfer widget, we've already taken our overflow from our save game file and processed it here, right? Ideally, anyway. I think that's what we did. When we set up our, well, yeah, no, when we set up our core values. When we set up our UI variable details, yeah, when it was true, we got the overflow straight from the save game ref, because that is the only place overflow is actually being held in our project, is in that save game ref. So we're just picking up that overflow and setting our overflow value to it. So we're going to come in here and we're going to clear that overflow. We no longer want to have anything in that save game ref overflow. That's because I'm going to do this as simply as possible. We're going to make sure one more time this is not empty. The button shouldn't be accessible if it is empty, so this should never fail. But I'll just add an event log that says overflow empty, just in case. But that should never happen. So we're going to take our overflow here and we're going to do a for each loop. We're going to take our player and we're going to go ahead and add item. I add item. Whoops. Do that as the item to add. And I'll be handling the overflow separately, probably in another video, or maybe at the end of this one. I'm not entirely sure. But that's all that actually needs to do. When it's completed, we're probably actually going to call player and say I save inventory. Just to make sure that we're actually triggering that save whenever we pick this up. We're actually going to delay a tick. Just to make sure everything's processed, and then we're going to make sure that we saved our inventory. And then we'll probably actually also want to refresh this widget. So set up transfer widget. And we'll actually delay another tick here. Because this is going to save the game, and basically all of the items that we're not able to add to the player are just going to get cycled back into the save game's overflow. And that's why I want to wait another tick here just in case. So we're going to take our player and our other actor and go ahead and pass those through. And that is all we are going to do here for real this time. Okay, so now the last two functions we need inside of this transfer widget is going to be buy inventory slots and buy bank slots. So we're going to get our button for buy bank slots, and we're going to get our button for buy slots, which is for buy inventory slots. And we're going to need a new interaction event to properly handle this. So we're going to go to our interface. We're going to add another one in inventory. And this is going to be called I increase inventory size. This is going to have an input of an integer, and this is how many slots you want to increase it by. So I'm just going to call it amount. And we're going to put this in the inventory category. And we'll set it all up in our player and our banker in just a minute. But that's all we're going to do here is just make this I increase inventory size. Okay, that way we can actually trigger it from these slots here. So if you remember in the last episode, we made this get inventory increase cost. Basically, we're going to run that and on buy, let's do buy player slots first, and then we'll duplicate it for buy bank slots since that's kind of what we've been doing. We're going to take our player capacity, which is our current inventory capacity that gets fed through here. We're going to take our player currency, and we're going to make sure one more time that our player currency is greater than or equal to the increased cost. This should already be disabled or hidden if we don't have the money, but we're going to check one more time just to be extra sure. And if that's false, we're going to add an event log. It's going to be called get a job. Just so you don't have enough money. We're going to take our player. Take our player. Player. And we're going to adjust currency by this negative amount here. So our total cost times a -1. Make sure we're removing the currency from our player. And then we're going to call I increase inventory size. And I'm just going to make this 10. So when we buy inventory slots, we're going to buy 10 inventory slots. However you want your game to function is going to be kind of what you decide to do here. And I'm going to, one more time, get out my player, and I'm going to I trigger save. That way the player saves its new inventory size. And then last but not least, I'm going to set up the transfer widget. You could add a log here if you want to log that the player bought the inventory, but I'm not too worried about it. We're just going to set up the transfer widget. And again, it's going to be the exact same thing on buy bank slots. It's just going to be the bank calling this stuff instead of the player. So I'm going to Control-C, Control-V, copy pasta that logic, grab that. Let's kind of settle it down here a little bit. I'm going to move you more to the center because you're both going to get called at the end. Instead of player, this is going to be other actor. I think we're actually going to have to trigger save twice here. But basically we need to take the other capacity, which is going to be the bank's capacity. See if we have enough player currency to increase the inventory size of the bank capacity. If not, we need to get a job. And if we can, we need to get our other actor here, adjust the inventory. We still need to get our player here because, whoops, we need to get our other, my bad. Our player is still going to be adjusting the currency. Our other actor is going to be increasing their inventory size by 10. And they are both going to trigger save. So we will just, whoops, spread that out a little bit. We'll put our other actor down here. We'll duplicate our I trigger save. I don't know why other actor was still selected. We'll delete that. And I trigger save inventory. Why did it do size? Save inventory, please. Thank you. We'll duplicate the I trigger save inventory and make sure that the player is also saving their newly adjusted currency amount and that the other actor is saving their increased inventory size. Okay, and that should be all we need to do here. We just needed that extra save. And then again, no matter what, we're just going to reset the transfer widget. If you don't want to reset the transfer widget, you could probably just take the capacity value and add to it. I think that would probably be fine here if you adjusted the capacity and the currency values. But I'm just going to set up the whole widget again. A little bit easier for me to do. Totally up to you what you want to do. If you're worried about like 100% uptime or max efficiency for some reason, then you might want to just adjust the values instead of resetting the entire widget. It's going to be buy slots for bank or player. And that is all we're going to do in here. And we need to actually add the logic into the banker and the player to adjust increase inventory size. It's going to be pretty simple. We're just going to take our AC inventory. And I guess we'll just make a custom function inside of that, and we'll call it increase size. That way we're not pulling all those values out and trying to do a whole bunch of stuff with them. Put this in the category of size. Increase amount, since we're never decreasing our inventory size, unless for some reason you want to decrease your inventory size. Take our inventory size here, amount, plus inventory size, and set that to inventory size. It's going to increase our size. And that's all we're going to do inside of our banker. So these are my interaction events. And if for some reason, right, maybe it's not saving, if the inventory size hasn't properly triggered, you might have to delay a tick here. That's just going to be something you have to kind of look into and do on your own. Sometimes you need to, sometimes you don't. I don't think I need to here, so I'm not going to. But I'm also not doing like a ton of other background processes or anything compute heavy, and this also isn't running on the server. If you're doing a multiplayer game where this needs to be validated on the server, you're going to want to wait for those server validations to properly trigger the save, and then probably do like a refresh spinner. And that would be another situation where you really don't want to set up the transfer widget. You probably want to adjust those values locally, and then when the server is done verifying and saving, patch them through to the transfer widget and make sure that the transfer widget's in the same state. But that gets a little messy, and we don't want to do that here. So there was one more thing, and that was I want to make sure that my I add item is actually coming through the player and triggering the overflow in whatever scenario that might need to happen. And we also need to do the inventory adjustment on the player real quick. So we're going to go into our player, and we're going to add our interface for our inventory. We have increase size. I wish it would just come up here with the other ones. Take our AC inventory and increase size. And we need to add some kind of way when we add the item to the inventory to make sure that we are using the overflow if the overflow happens to be enabled and in use. All right. And so this is going to come in our inventory function, our add to inventory, one of the first things we made in this tutorial series. And this is going to come off of our completed. So I never actually did this logic in this video. I kind of overlooked it altogether, and that's because this is going to be for our handling of the overflow. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our boolean here, our local boolean that failed, and this is if we failed out of the loop. So that means that we have items remaining, and we failed out of the loop. So there are items that we did not pick up here. And if there are items we did not pick up here, we want to handle that accordingly. Okay? So if you want players to be able to use overflow, that is where this is going to come into play. So I'm going to add a couple of event logs, just so I know what's going on here. I'm going to add an event log called all items added success. And we're going to say not all items added. Then we're going to take use overflow and run a branch. And if use overflow is true, we want to get the item info, I think is what I called it. And that is that input variable from this function. So we want the item info. We're going to break it open. We're going to get our local remaining, because this is the amount of items remaining from that item info that came in here. I'm going to see if our local remaining is greater than 0. Because we want to make sure that there's actually something in here to add. We don't want to be adding 0 to our overflow. That'll get weird. And if there is, we're going to take this inventory overflow value here. We're going to get it, and we're going to go ahead and add to it. I'm going to go ahead and make that. add the item ID. We're going to add the local remaining straight in there. And we're going to do the enhancement level. And then we're going to add an event log. It says something like items added to overflow. So items added to overflow. And then we want to make sure that we're clearing this overflow in the inventory component when we save. Okay, so when we save, we want to make sure we're clearing this. So if you remember correctly, when we save our player inventory, we're checking to see if we are using overflow and overflow is not empty. And if it is, we're running this set overflow function in the save game. So what we actually need to do after that is clear it. Because if we don't clear it here, then the inventory overflow in our player's inventory component is going to continue adding items on. So if we were to set the overflow here in the save, well, now we have the overflow added into the save. So even though we don't load the overflow back into the player, basically when we add a new item to the overflow, when we go to pick up the overflow, you know how it just adds the item straight to the player? Well, if the player still doesn't have enough inventory space, then that overflow is going to get added back to the prior overflow, and you're going to end up with a bunch of item duplication. And we don't really want that. Okay, so just kind of something to keep in mind, you know, to just keep in mind. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a debug key in order to actually test this, and this is getting pretty sloppy. We're going to have to clean up probably in the next episode, just to clean a bunch of stuff up here. So for my to key, we will add an item to the inventory. When we press, and we will do this from AC inventory. And this is going to, I want it to forcibly fail, so we're going to make this, and I think I said iron sword was 5,000. So we're going to add the item ID of 5,000, and my default player inventory is 50. So we're going to add 60, and this should try to add 60 iron swords to the player's inventory when I click it. And I also want to adjust currency, and I want to give myself 1,000,000. That way we have some money to work with here. So that should be triggering our overflow, and we should be good to test all this out. Let's bring our banker into the world. I put him in the objects class, NPC, banker. And let's actually also make sure that in our player, before I forget, we have to set up the interaction event. So when it is bank, we are setting can interact to true and telling our PC custom to display the interact widget for use bank. And I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that, and this is going to be trade for vendor. And class giver is going to just be a pickup class. Well, we're going to have to run some logic in class giver, so I won't worry about that yet. But yeah, just know that we have to add these interaction events for it to actually trigger, otherwise nothing's going to happen. So when we walk over to our banker, I'm going to go ahead and press 2. It's going to say items added to overflow. That's great. And we see that we have 1,000,000,000 swords. Way more swords than we need. So we're going to go ahead and dump a bunch of those swords into this chest. Actually, that's the chest that doesn't have any storage size. So we're going to dump them into this chest, which actually has storage size. And we're just going to come through here at max, 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 max. Just to get rid of all these, that way we can pick up our overflow and see it should be 10 swords, or maybe it'll be like 12 or 13, because I had a few extra things in my capacity, or in my inventory. But it won't overflow again. If it did overflow again, it would be just like what we said. It would save it to the save games overflow storage and remove it, clear out the player's overflow storage. Jeez, how many of these did I actually add? I'm gonna store all those. So, yay, we got all the swords stored. Save up. We don't have anything in our inventory. We still have the money though. Now we're going to use bank, and we're going to see this transfer widget is now in the bank type. So you see pickup overflow is active. Let's go ahead and try that. And boom, we picked up all those swords. Now it is not there. There's nothing in our overflow for us to pick up, so it's gone. I'm going to give all these swords to the banker since I didn't want them in the first place. I don't remember how much capacity I gave the bank, though. I guess not enough since we can't store items, right? I guess I probably gave the bank 0. Let's go ahead and buy some slots. I'll do that 3... Whoops. I didn't want to buy them in the player. I wanted to buy them in the bank. We'll do that 3 times. And we'll see my currency is slowly going down here. Do it a couple more times. It doesn't cost too much when you don't have many slots, but when you start getting into the hundreds of slots, it costs a lot. And now we can successfully deposit the items. That means we have the slots. So one thing we didn't change here is we didn't update this slider value, so I don't know how much I'm depositing. I'll just deposit, I guess, 291,000. So we're going to go and change that real quick. And go into our transfer widget, into our designer, and make sure that we actually bind this to the amount to deposit and the amount to withdraw. I know occasionally I forget to bind things. But that should be good. That should be all we really needed to change here. So let's go ahead and check out our banker again, make sure everything's saved. Check out our storage chest, right? Make sure that all of our swords, our millions of swords, are still inside that storage chest. And we're going to check out our banker. And our swords have saved, and our currency has saved. I thought I put 400,000 in there. Did I only put 200? I guess I only put 291,000 in there. I thought it was 400,000. But now when I slide this slider, we see that the max is all of the currency that I have available, and the min is 0. It's going to slide between those values. There's quite a bit of money there. If I hit max, it's going to move the slider all the way to max, and it's going to move the slider all the way to min. So that's pretty nice there. And if I buy slots, it's going to remove the currency. That was a lot of money. And it's 50,000. It didn't refresh max, but when I hit max, it's going to refresh. I wonder what would happen. Let's see if let's withdraw the maximum amount here. Let's hit max. So that's 610,000. Let's buy slots. So now we have 530,000, and let's deposit. So it did deposit 610,000. So we have a bit of a duplication glitch there. And that is because we did not adjust the slider values when we hit that max button. And these are things, this is just the intricacies that you get into with game dev where you have to test every little thing because you know damn well a player is going to find this and they're going to be like, oh yeah, well, you know, I can actually duplicate my money by buying slots and get free slots. So that is something we have to do here. We adjusted the currency, we triggered the save game. This is on buy slots, and we set up the transfer widget. I'm guessing set up transfer widget, set up core values, or set up UI variable details maybe. Or maybe we just didn't give it long enough to do its thing. Actually, I think I know what the problem is. The problem is that we just didn't reset these currency values. So when we reset everything, we're just going to set amount to withdraw and amount to deposit just to 0. That way there's nothing here, and that should work when we reset the widget. Let's go ahead and try again. Use the bank. And we'll go ahead and max this out. So we have 530,000. We'll buy another slot. Now we have 440,000, and we see that it reset, and it's 440,000. Let's go ahead and withdraw all our money. Let's max it out and withdraw, just to make sure real quick. Whoops, I didn't want to buy that slot. We'll max that out, 631,977. So we'll buy the slot, now we have 521,977. Oh my, 100,000 for the slots. And now we'll deposit, and it deposited 0. So that is great. We fixed that little bug there, and we are good to go. Make sure we can withdraw the items. Retrieve items, sorry, not withdraw. And if you really wanted to, you could enable or disable this button based on the amount that is shown here. But, you know, I think it's fine if we don't do that. I don't think it's a big deal. All our filters are working, so that is great. That is our banker all set up and ready to go with the overflow properly working and saving, and the bank slots being purchasable and all that good stuff. In the next episode, we will set up the vendor, and we will bring in our vendor data tables for easy vendor setup, and that way we can actually buy and sell items. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments section, and we will try to help you out as much as we can here. If you're enjoying the videos so far, I urge you to join our Patreon. For just $3 a month, you'll get access to all of the videos in this series as soon as I create them. Always available on Patreon, always free, and ready to go. You'll also get a copy of the example project so you can follow along step by step with a real visual guide in the project.